Good evening, race fans. Welcome here to Homestead-Miami Speedway as it plays host to the second race of the season for PepegaCar. Last week, we saw a thriller at the first road course stop of Road America, where it was Alexander Van Desant taking the first checkered flag of the season. Here today, prepare for some pack racing as these drivers will take this 1.5-mile speedway for 120 laps. I'm Seth Cole alongside of Anthony McCrory. And Anthony, an entirely different monster, entirely different style of racing that these drivers have to deal with here in the second race of the season.
All right, we've put the oval kit on these cars. We're getting ready for a 1.5 mile race around the Homestead-Miami Speedway. The last time out, the season opener, again, was at the road course of Road America. One of the longest stops we're going to go on the circuit, and we did, again, like Seth said, we saw Alexander Van Desant, the best of the rest in that event. Tonight is going to be much different, high speeds and on the high banks. Get to see some 2-3 wide racing. It's good pack racing in these Indy cars, and open wheels at ovals, always fun to watch, and I can't wait to see how this one plays out.
Caden Rush is going to claim the pole position for today's event. He will be leading 21 drivers to the green flag. We capped at the 30-car field last week at Road America, slightly smaller here today, but going to be nonetheless some action-packed racing from start to finish. Some of the drivers that didn't necessarily get the runs they were looking for last week, just how aggressive do you think they're going to be? Drivers back there in the mid-pack that didn't necessarily get a good qualifying effort. I mean, is this a long enough race that you can play the patient game, or do you got to get up there to the front ASAP?
The way that these speeds work at this racetrack, and given how short the lap is, the quicker you can get to the front, the better. Not a whole lot of time. 120 laps seems like a long time, but the lap times are going to be putting down may not be conducive to that. You don't want to get into trouble. However, these tires, if you touch them, you will get sent up into the wall, potentially up into the air as well, as these cars are a bit unstable when wheel-to-wheel contact gets made.
Out of turn 4, they will file double wide behind the iRacing pace car, who makes the left-hand turn to pit road. First speedway race of the season here at the Homestead-Miami Speedway is green. Caden Rush and Justin Lisenby, who's going to be the one to lead them into the first couple corners as they're starting to fan out almost 3 wide behind them. I believe that was the 29 of Adam Crane to the peak, and now we're already wrecking. Bunch of torn up race cars up and into the outside wall.
That would have been Valley, Lisenby. I think Scott Taylor was also involved with that one. Got the 31 of Troll also off into the dirt. Few drivers with a lot of damage, and that happened right at the front. I believe it was contact that was made by, I think it was between Lisenby and perhaps Valley, as both of those drivers with heavy damage. Blake Reynolds, I believe, also with some heavy damage out of that one.
See the tether on that right front, just barely keeping that tire connected to the race car. That's the 66 of Blake Reynolds. Can't even make the corner there into turn 3. Let's go back and see what happened. First corner, first lap. I don't know who it was that got out of shape, but it almost looked like they went into turn 1 4 wide.
They went into turn 1 2 wide. I think what happened was just the biggest bobble from, I believe, Valley was the one. No, it wasn't. It was Lisenby. Taylor? Trying to figure out who was actually the first one that spun around. Doesn't seem... Somebody went around first. I'm trying to figure out who that was.
Looks like it might have been the 26 of Valley. He's the white machine on the inside. Oh, he got really loose. Slid up the track into the 31 of Justin Lisenby.
Yeah, you see the twitch.
Yeah, that thing just never planted when he went into the corner.
I think what happened was that he hit the inside white line, and that sent the car into a twitch, and tried to correct it, but there was a car to his outside, and that happened to be Lisenby, so a tough break. There was a driver that attempted to go 3 wide around the outside, but did not work out very well, as got collected as well. I believe that was Reynolds that tried to go around the outside and just couldn't make it through.
On board there with Victor Valley, and yeah, I think you described it perfectly. Got that left front tire down on the white paint line where there is absolutely no grip available to the Firestones, and bunch of torn up race cars early on. Now, as opposed to last week, when we ran at Road America, these drivers here with this speedway race do have one faster pair available to them. So a little bit of a mulligan for those drivers that received the early damage. Justin Lisenby is one that has already taken on the faster pair, but it looks like Victor Valley, Blake Reynolds, both of them, I'm not necessarily certain in the case of Reynolds, but I don't think Victor Valley was able to drive back to pit road, so they are having to serve the tow time before they would eventually, I would assume, take on the faster pairs, as I don't even see with the suspension damage that both of them had sustained how either one of them could be able to just get manual repairs done and be able to get back out of there on the racetrack.
Absolutely not. Blake Reynolds had some severe front end damage. Both of his front wheels were just hanging on by a thread, and the whole car, the whole suspension housing, everything was just skewed beyond racing condition. The same with Victor Valley. These cars, they can take some hits, but they're not very sturdy like a stock car would be. For anybody watching this that is accustomed to stock car racing and then NASCAR and such, these cars can't take the hits that those cars can. They are durable. Don't get me wrong. They can take shots that you wouldn't think that they could, but something like that definitely a bit out of their wheelhouse. But yeah, a big crash lap one sends us under caution the first time around. Haven't even completed one lap, but they were gearing up to do so. But that's a danger that you have to pay attention to throughout the entire race, is that inside line. Getting onto the white line, it'll upset the car and send you up into the outside wall. Definitely a trouble spot for these drivers. Maybe have to run a slight line higher than that in order to make some decent laps.
So we're waiting for the indication that we will go back green. The lights on the iRacing pace car are out, so we will be going back green here for our first restart of the evening on lap number 6. It'll be pole sitter Caden Rush leading us back. Adam Crane is going to restart in second. Last week's winner from Road America, Alexander Van de Sant, will be third. Presley Sora, who was fourth 1 week ago, will roll off from fourth place, and Spencer Ray is going to complete the top 5. Before we go green, got to talk about a little bit of a follow-up from last week at Road America in regards to penalties that took place during the course of that road course race. And the driver that we're going to kind of highlight right now is going to be Adam Crane in that 29. We ended up seeing a little bit of hard racing between himself and the 87 of Sam Adams that resulted in Adams wrecking. That was, of course, between turns 5 and 6 in that one. There was, as we announced in the middle of the race, some penalties that were getting handed out. A 15-second penalty for the 29 of Adam Crane. After further review, admins deeming that it was hard racing between the two, and it was then minimized down to a 5-second penalty, which Adam Crane served in that race. So there is no penalty for the 29 coming into tonight's event, as Caden Rush gets us back under the green flag.
Rush got a good restart and has gotten away from Crane. Van de Sant
and the caution's out again.
Another spinner down in turn 1. I think it was
999.
It was Valley again, maybe.
Will Klein, the 48, I see there on the inside of the exit of turn 2.
It was, I think it was just Will Klein that was involved in this one.
Well, there's the 999 though there as well.
Oh, there is, yeah.
Now this, I believe, I might be wrong, but I believe this is Mike Finlayson. I'll double check on that, driving that machine. Last week we didn't see him in the field as he was the race control for the Road America event, but bringing out the second caution. Yeah, let's go back and see what happened. I believe it was himself and the 48 of Will Klein that got together over in between turns 1 and 2.
Yeah, you could see, I think that what happened is he just lost it on the way into turn 1. There was a bit of a self-spin, and then Will Klein got collected on the way up when the 99 was on his way up the racetrack.
Wow, that's a hard hit for both of those drivers. No time to react. Will Klein just basically was hoping that the 999 was not going to slide up the racetrack. It would just stay in the middle groove. And unfortunately for him, he chose the wrong lane to try and escape. And hard hits for both of those drivers, no doubt. Both of them are going to have to be taking on faster pairs here. So that's about 2, 3, 4 cars that are badly torn up, and we're not even 10 laps into this race.
Yeah, it's extremely early for these drivers to go out this fashion. But the good news for the 99 or 999 is that there was a faster pair to use. So I believe that they will be using that, as well as Will Klein, I believe, had one. So all's fair, all's fair. Although I don't think that Klein is using it. He's still staying on pit road, 2 laps down now. I wonder if he's thinking that this might be happening a little bit more throughout the race and trying to strategize for when that happens, but we'll have to keep tabs on that one, as it's been pretty smooth sailing for Caden Rush. He hasn't lost the lead, hasn't been really challenged for the lead. We haven't been spending many green flag laps running around the circuit, but so far, the way that these guys are running, it seems that turn one is the trouble spot, even as they get into a run. You carry a lot of speed going down the straightaways. That turn one and turn three looks like to be pretty treacherous if you have your setup set up a little bit out of line with the entry of the turn to have it arc in rather than driving it straight in, that we've seen some drivers do. But even still, that was just a slow spin by the 999 that sent the car up into the wall.
Interesting too, as we saw the weather conditions that these drivers are dealing with here early on in this one. Not even 90-degree track temperature for these guys, so it's not necessarily as if this would be considered an ultra slick racetrack. You know, the way we're seeing these cars stepping out on these drivers, you would think that we'd be looking maybe at track conditions in the high 90s, maybe even into the triple digits, but no, that's not the case. This would seem like they would have at least some feasible grip going into these corners, but just how quickly we saw the back end step out on the 999 would obviously argue that is not the case. And going back to the point you were talking about there for Will Klein, both he and the 999 of Finlayson, they have returned back to the racetrack. The reason they spent so long on pit road, both their cars were wrecked over in turn one, and the way that the towing back to pit lane works is it basically takes the time from where you do the tow to your pit stall, but it does it based off if you were making your way back to your pit stall under pacing, which is about 60 to 65 miles per hour. So it's a very lengthy amount of time that you are losing when you have to tow the car back to pit road rather than getting it back to your pit stall under your own power. Now, you notice a number of drivers that are flying around the race leaders. Blake Reynolds is one of those drivers. I believe another one was Justin Lisenby, Victor Valley as well. Those drivers were all trapped a lap down under the last caution. They are getting their laps back under this caution period. So we're going to have at least 20 of the 22 drivers on the lead lap. And if we end up seeing a couple more cautions, we'll probably see the 48 of Will Klein, the 999 of Finlayson going around getting their laps back, as well as actually there I believe was Will Klein going around. So, and there goes Finlayson. So yeah, all 22 cars now will be on the lead lap when Caden Rush and Adam Crane get us back under the green flag. Kind of interesting here, we're doing a double file restart. Normally with Indy cars, you end up seeing them single file, but this will be very interesting, especially with what we saw turn one, lap one, when we were double wide for the initial start of this race.
Doubling up for the restart two, second attempt at it. Caden Rush will be our leader. Adam Crane second. Rush can go whenever he wants to and has gone. Got a good lead over Crane. Crane sets in line, so too does Van de Sant as they rush into turn one. Can everyone get through turn one cleanly this time around? So far, so good throughout the top three, even side by side battling for fourth between LaPrade and Novak. And someone has gone down to the apron. I think they've crashed on the back straightaway. I believe that's Novak that's crashed on the back straightaway.
Zach Novak, and no caution to save him. Had hard luck last week at Road America when he went up over the rumble strips out of the couple final corners very early on in that one. Suffered a DNF as a result, finishing 29th, and early stages here at Homestead puts the 90 behind the 8 ball as well. They were 3 wide back here around the 5th, 6th, 7th position as Presley Sora, Cole Fralick, Spencer Ray. They have since settled that out, gotten themselves into single file formation. Further back, Justin Lisenby, who brought out the first caution of the day. He's fought his way already back up into the top 10, move him up to P9.
With the fast car that he's got underneath him, and he's cutting him down and putting him back behind him extremely quick. Probably one of the fastest cars on the racetrack at the moment. Up towards the front,
Oh, got another one spinning. Chandler Parsons in the 3 has gone around off of turn 2. Again, no caution as that was down below the racing surface.
Single car incident as well off the racing surface. No yellow for that. Battle for the lead as Rush goes to the inside of Crane. Crane trying to go defensive. Can he hold the position on the outside line? Almost some contact between the two of them going down the back straightaway side by side. No push to pass on the oval, so you have to do it with the draft that you get. Right now, the inside line is trying to have the advantage. Tries to squeeze in front, give it back to Caden Rush. He'll lead lap 14, but here comes Crane back to battle.
Last week, Adam Crane finished 6th at Road America. Caden Rush finished 15th. So if it's a question of who wants this win more in terms of points, you'd have to think it would be that 0-6 as they snake their way down the back straightaway. Behind them, 2 drivers that had great performances last week. Your first and second place finishers from Road America, Alex Van de Sant, Briar LaPrade. They're mixing it up for the 3rd spot.
And Van de Sant and LaPrade both are trying to get their way back into a podium position. Van de Sant's already there, but they're right up on the back end of Crane is Van de Sant. Now, what happened was with Alexander was at the beginning of the race at Road America, he didn't favor too well, and then as the race progressed later on in the race, he was able to pull up and get a win. 5 laps left in the race. It was the only time that he took the lead of the race. Now going for 2nd place, I don't think there was much of a struggle there between himself and Crane, as Crane looks like he's trying to drop back in order to save some of his tires, but move Van de Sant up into 2nd place, trying to run down Caden Rush.
Now Briar LaPrade looks to get that 3rd position from Adam Crane. Behind them, we were focused on the battle for 4th, and it is still hot and heavy. Cole Freilich got around Presley Sora. Sora is not letting him open up any daylight. Those two still separated by less than 2 car lengths off of turn 2. And Spencer Ray just back there in the foreground trying to get up here and make it a 3-man fight for the final spot inside the top 5.
Touching on Cole Freilich last week out, he finished in a 12th place position, just outside the top 10 for this driver, but starting out pretty solid. Presley Sora, on the other hand, had a bit of a dismal race the last time out. Ended up, actually, I should say that he finished in the top 5. I misread that wrong. So Presley Sora trying to go back-to-back top 5s, right now running in 6th place on the cusp of getting inside the top 5. And Spencer Ray in a side-by-side battle with Jonathan Dunley, which I believe is making his first start of the season, as there was almost contact between the two of them down the back straightaway.
Michael Gonzalez mixing it up with Spencer Ray for the 7th position. Behind them, Blake Reynolds and Jonathan Delaney, as you mentioned, they're battling for the 9th spot. Blake Reynolds is another driver who's very quickly working his way up to the front. And another driver that I've noticed that's been making some very quick progress is the 48 of Will Klein, who was involved in the last caution. He's currently worked his way now up to 12th position and all over the back bumper of Justin Lisenby for another spot, 1 step closer to the top 10. But man, right now, Presley Sora and Cole Freilich, these 2 guys, they just keep clearing themselves off the corners, and there's not much that you could fit between the rear bump. Well, it's not even a rear bumper, the rear wing, we'll say, and the front wing of these machines.
Absolutely not. I want to make a correction. Delaney did take part last week. However, he did finish out just inside the top 20 in a 19th position. So definitely trying to rebound from that race right now, running in the top 10 in a 10th position. But this battle between Sora and Freilich, now both of these drivers had great results last time out, trying to better on them right now. But this battling for 5th places, having them fall behind drivers such as Adam Crane and Briar LaPrade, which has moved into a top 3 position in the 3rd place, although Crane trying to keep with them is Caden Rush. Continues to try and extend his lead, but don't look now. Van de Sant is closing in. It's only a matter of time when he does it, but as they settle out into a long run, try to figure out what their cars can do, I believe that everyone's kind of, settled down a little bit after the chaotic starts.
I agree with you. I think that now they've been able to give those Firestones some time to warm up. They're starting to feel a little bit more heat, a little bit more grip in those tires, and we're not seeing nearly the crazy racing of 2 and 3 wide that we saw earlier on in this one. We've got these little side-by-side battles for position all the way through the field, but nothing quite to the scale of what we saw in the first couple laps of this race. Unfortunately, though, with the caution not saving a few drivers, Zach Novak is now in the garage area. He'll finish the evening out in the 22nd position, and Chandler Parsons actually just came back to pit road. He has fallen multiple laps down, 5 laps down right now to the race leaders. About 8 laps ago, an unscheduled stop for Reese Masucci, in the 45 car. He is now 3 laps down to the leaders, and that mentioned that Chandler Parsons just came down pit road. That was to make the left-hand turn to the garage. So 2 drivers, 25 laps in, out of this evening's festivities.
Looking at Will Klein, which had some problems earlier in the race, has now got his way back into an 11th place position. Just outside the top 10, trying to work his way in. He's got Lisenby right behind him, which was facing the wrong direction with a wrecked car earlier in the run. Has also made a rebound to get into 12th place. It goes to show that even though you have some damage and you're able to recover from it and get back up into a challenging spot. Now, they did have the benefit of a fast repair, but still, the speed out of these cars is pretty noticeable. Right behind him, also the 999, again, was facing the wrong direction on the second caution of the night, and finds himself running in a 13th spot. So another recovery drive for all 3 of these drivers have been able to get back inside the top 15.
You mentioned about Briar LaPrade getting around Adam Crane. He has lost touch with LaPrade for that 3rd position. Now is falling back into this battle between Cole Freilich and Presley Sorer, who have been mixing it up, swapping that 5th position lap after lap. It's now about to become a 3-man fight for the 4th position, and it might become a 4-man fight as Blake Reynolds just recently got around Michael Gonzalez. You saw it there in the back end of that camera shot a couple of laps ago. He's now up to P7. Good comeback run for the guy that was all torn up and having difficulty even turning the car left to get back to pit road back in the first lap of this race.
There wasn't much of a fight between Freilich and Crane that last time out. Freilich was able to get around the 29 with ease and is now pulling away. Presley Sorer now catching up to the back end of the 29 to potentially put himself in the 5th place position. So that stands to question, though, what is wrong with Adam Crane's car? He had speed at the beginning of the run, and since the last restart has fallen off dramatically, hasn't been able to catch back up to the lead pack. And I almost wonder if there's some kind of damage on that car that's just small enough to not really notice, but is significant enough that's causing the car to go backwards in the wrong direction. I struggle to understand why this car has lost so much pace.
Well, I'll give you a little bit of an idea possibly with what I'm seeing out of a number of these drivers. When we looked back at Will Klein, I actually saw the back end snap out up from underneath him off of turn 2. That was about 7 to 10 laps ago, and we were riding on board there with Jonathan Delaney. You just saw how much wheel play was going into that car when he entered into the corner, as if he was trying everything he could just to make sure the back end was going to stay steady underneath him. I think these drivers might be dealing with some rear grip going away the longer the run goes on. If I'm Adam Crane, I'm backing my pace down, trying to preserve those rear tires, set myself up here for the long run.
Absolutely.
Oh, we got a car that's slow. Spencer Ray, he's actually spun it off of turn 2. He's impacted the inside wall, especially with the left front of his machine. But again, much like what happened with Parsons and Novak, the spin took place below the white line, theoretically off the racing surface, and no caution will come out to save him.
That happened to be a slow spin coming out of turn 2 that caught him out. So that might stand to reason that these cars are getting harder and harder to control going through the turns. He just twitched.
And another car, sorry to cut you off, has had an issue with turn 2. That's Jonathan Delaney, who was running up inside the top 15.
And I want to bet it's the same exact problem. As I look back at it, it is. On the exit of turn 2, rode up the track just slightly, got the downforce, just not able to hold the car down. And a slow spin off the turn was what caused the Delaney to have a spin in the same exact spot that we saw Spencer Ray have his spin. Not as much damage to Delaney, although still on pit road with a little bit of right side damage that he'll have to repair, and new tires for the 6 machine as he's out extremely quick. Spencer Ray still stuck on the pit lane, as that might become an issue that these drivers might want to be a little bit more alert to going forward in the race, knowing that they have that problem. A lot of drivers having the problem coming out of turn two, and nowhere else on the racetrack have we seen that many incidences in the same spot. We've always seen them there, so might have to keep an eye on that one. But they still running at similar pace at what the race started at. The best lap for Caden Rush was as 26.3, and even still now running 26.6. So only a few tenths off of his best lap, which, considering how long the run's gone on and how old the tires must be wearing down, that's incredible that he's able to keep this much pace.
And I would certainly hazard a guess that the issues we're seeing a number of drivers dealing with, that loose sensation off the second corner, it's not going to get better. It's only going to get worse the longer we go into this run, which kind of brings me to the question now about when I saw, I think it was Spencer Ray trying to come to pit lane. I mean, he had to get hard on the brakes to get that thing woed down. We talked about it. Things are relatively spread out right now. Any incidents that looked like they could have brought out a caution have not. End up seeing these drivers having to come on to pit road. I mean, how difficult is it for them to be woeing these things up to pit road speed?
It depends on where they take the pit lane entrance at. If they have the rule where they have to enter on the back straightaway via the access road, then it might be a little bit easier because they'll have plenty of run on to scrub off the speed. If they don't have that rule and they can enter at the pit lane entrance, then that might be where the trouble spots come in. But as far as I'm aware, I think they have to utilize the access road as a driver has just hit the pit lane via the access road. So I don't think that it would be that big of an issue.
Caution's out. Caution is out. It's Cole Freilich up into the wall. I believe the 72 of Michael Gonzalez was involved as well. Look out, oncoming traffic as Freilich tries to get his car down to the inside to head for pit road. And I was just going to mention before that, you talked about that car on the access road. I've now completed my first hand. I got to move on to my second hand. We are up to 5 drivers that have spun off of turn 2. That car that was on the access road was the 48 of Will Klein, the latest victim of the turn 2 exit.
And this is another victim of the turn 2 exit. Cole Freilich is. He almost saved this machine, but I just overcorrected. A lot of oversteer that these drivers are having to deal with right now, and he got sent straight up into the outside barrier. That was an intense impact that the 15 took.
72 of Michael Gonzalez. Let's see what happens to him. Oh, he just never saw that Freilich was in trouble. He was already too wide with, I believe that was Michael Finlayson, and just completely ripped the right side of his machine off. Let's actually go back now and see about that incident with Cole Freilich that led to the eventual contact between himself and Gonzalez. This has taken Gonzalez out of the race, and this is incredible about the fact that so many drivers have been dealing with turn 2. Now, unlike most of the others, Freilich was able to keep his car from spinning to the inside wall, but the overcorrection still got him a lot of damage on the right side of his machine, and then there's the hit from the 72 of Michael Gonzalez.
When you're running into these turns at 320K, you're not really expecting the car to break loose on you so easily, but on the exit, you're still going about 197 miles an hour. So having that much speed on the exit and the way that the tires have been falling off, it wouldn't be surprising that they're having this issue, but still having so many cars in the same spot of the it's the transition from the banking onto the flat surface of the back straightaway that's catching these drivers out, and you combine that with the speeds and the fact that the air can get into the car on the transition, they're having some extremely difficult times trying to get off of that. Now, for Freilich, I think the good thing for him is that he had a fast repair he could use, and I think he has used, so he has a fresh car as a result of that. It's still in 10th place. The bad news is, obviously, he doesn't have that going forward, but that's not going to fix the turn 2 situation that these drivers are having to deal with. And if his car has snapped loose there once before, it would stand to reason that unless he changes his driving style through the exit of 2, it will continue to persist. So that might be a wake-up call for a lot of these drivers to potentially change their line on the exit, maybe run an outside line. Although Freilich was kind of running an outside line to begin with, though. That's the struggle with it.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of drivers that look like they've got it figured out. All of a sudden, the back end stepping out on them. I mean, we saw Delaney looked like he was pretty comfortable, and all of a sudden we saw him around out of turn two. Spencer Ray was holding down a spot just in the latter half of the top 10, and he went around. We're seeing these drivers come around, get their laps back. Spencer Ray back in the lead lap now. I believe that was Will Klein that went around. He's got a couple more laps to get before he'll be back on the lead lap, but with all that we saw there under that green flag run of drivers hitting the inside wall off of turn two and no caution to save them. Delaney, Spencer Ray, and Will Klein all now a faster pair in the hole, as well as you mentioned, Cole Freilich in the 15. Four drivers now out of the race as we are a third of the way through this evening's Homestead-Miami Speedway event. Michael Gonzalez, Reese Pank Masushi. I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm having trouble with that name. Chandler Parsons and Zach Novak. Those are the four drivers in the garage area at this point in time. And I don't want to in any way jinx these drivers up here at the front, but I have to wonder, you know, Caden Rush, Van de Sant, Adam Crane, Briar LaPrade, Blake Reynolds. These guys have been fast. They look like they aren't dealing with that problem off of turn two, but I have to wonder if a number of drivers that have been up at the front, we've seen them around out of turn two. I mean, are these guys on that razor's edge when they're coming up the second corner? Are they feeling that loose sensation?
I would imagine that they are, and the only reason why they might not be struggling with it as much as they might not be pushing as hard on the exit of turn two as these other drivers are trying to catch back up to the front of the pack. The top five has been relatively calm in the sense that there's no urgency that these drivers are feeling right now. And another touch on the reason why you might be seeing these cars have some problems on the exit of two is that these the low downforce package we have, this isn't the oval package that you have for shorter ovals. This is the I mean, it's the low downforce package. It's the 2+ mile long track, or 2+ mile long oval setup that they have, that they run in Indianapolis, California, all the other tracks like that. So those are set up for larger tracks, and we have this much banking and that much elevation change. Any little bit of sideways that these cars get will cause these them to lose the downforce they have. As green flag comes back out, Caden Rush with a great restart tries to get away from everybody else, but because of the wings right now, the front and the rear wing are so thin comparatively to if they were running a moderate downforce setup where it's kind of in between the road configuration and the oval configuration, they would have more downforce, but their lap times would be slower. So it's kind of a trade-off. You get faster lap times at the expense of your car being on razor's edge the entire run.
We got to get ourselves here through the storm before we can get these guys spread out and back to the green flag racing we saw before. Somebody was up on the wall back there. I think that might have been the 99 of Scott Taylor, and he is fading back as a result. Trapped on that outside line in the 99. We may go three wide for the lead. Ooh, Presley Sora got his left sides down on that paint line, a la Victor Valley. I thought for a moment we might be looking at yet another caution. Nice job of keeping that thing underneath him, but it has dropped him back to the 6th position and faded him outside of this battle for second place.
He certainly had a go at it, didn't he, going down into turn one. I didn't think that he was going to take it there, but he's trying to test the waters to see if three wide can work, and short answer is yes, but results may vary. Van de Sant running back into the second place position. Adam Crane now settling into third place. No one's had anything, though, for Caden Rush ever since the restart. Even on the last restart, got into the lead and then basically put everybody that tried to challenge him behind him, and has now opened up another large gap, almost a second back to the aforementioned Van de Sant. Briar LaPrade still running in a 4th position, but now behind him you've got a side-by-side battle between Troll and Sora, and up on the outside, the extreme outside line, there goes the 999 around the outside. That might be the position. Yep, there it is right there. Perfect move done on the outside.
Finlayson moves into the 6th position. That's Justin Lisenby, the 31, down right against that white line through 1 and 2, trying to close in on this battle between Finlayson and Presley Sora. Up ahead of them, Blake Reynolds making his first start on the season. He's now going to move by Briar LaPrade, or at least attempt to, down the front straightaway for the 4th position. And with a number of drivers here tonight making their first starts, we're going to see quite a shakeup in the points as well, because there's a bunch of guys that had good performances, top 10 runs last week at Road America that are not in the field here tonight. Drivers that would include would be Nate Stewart, Carlos Borges, also Craig Forsyth, AJ Musselman, and also TJ Crampton, who finished 11th last week at Road America. So, there's a number of guys that are going to be dropping outside of the top 10 in the point standings. And with what we're looking at right now, at a bunch of guys making their debuts here this evening up there inside the top 10, top 15, the outlook of the point standings heading into next week is certainly going to be entirely different from what it looked like coming into tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Those drivers, now what they might be doing is they might be running a different type of schedule, or they only run a certain track discipline, being that they might only be running the road circuits, and some of these drivers might only be running the oval circuits. We certainly see that in the real life IndyCar, where you have drivers such as Jimmy Johnson running only the road circuits and none of the ovals, sharing the car essentially with Tony Kanaan. But then you also see drivers like Romain Grosjean, who is only running we actually only made his first oval start the last time out, so he's running primarily road courses as well. So they might be doing that with the split season. Some of these drivers, they get into these cars and they favor one type of circuit with these cars, whether it be the road, the street, the oval circuits. And they'll pick that, and they'll only run these cars at those type of disciplines because that's what they're most comfortable with. And some drivers, these are not easy cars to drive by any means. These are some of the hardest open wheel cars that we'll have to drive anywhere, really, as they're no power steering and them extremely twitchy. They're built to go fast, and they're built to go fast. Well, by design, they're built to go in an oval because these cars were originally set up for races such as the Indianapolis 500 and such. But then you jump into these cars and you try to run them at any other place, and if you're not accustomed to that, it can be a bit of a learning curve. That's not to say that to be discouraged from trying it, but that might be what some of these drivers are doing. It's just kind of easing their way into it if they're relatively new to Indy cars, or maybe they just didn't make the race because of other reasons that they couldn't make it. But whatever the case is, it certainly will impact the points. Some drivers that are trying to further their points lead would be drivers such as the 97 of Van de Sant, who again was last week's winner, trying to make a second finish inside the top three, right now running in second. And the guy that finished second the last time was Briar LaPrade, running in fifth place. Now the third place driver from last week was Nate Stewart, and as Seth mentioned, Nate Stewart not in the field tonight.
No, not in the field tonight, and would have come in tonight with quite a bit of momentum last night here on Flatout Racing Network, taking his first victory in the FTF Grand National Series. So, maybe we'll see him back next week. He talked about, different drivers liking the different variations of track. Some drivers completely running the ovals and other drivers completely running the road courses. Well, in the 10 races here for PepegaCar, 4 of them are going to be at the speedways, including here tonight at the Homestead-Miami Speedway. We also go to Indianapolis, we go to Chicagoland, and we go to Auto Club. The rest of the schedule is made up of road courses, including next week when these drivers are going to have to tackle the very tight corners of Belle Isle in Detroit.
Detroit is the first street circuit on the calendar. It's the first of, I believe, 3. Check that. Yes, the first of... Make that the first of 2. The first of 2. So Detroit will be next weekend, and that is not an easy circuit. It's really bumpy, extremely tight. And being on, it is public road technically, and on the island of Belle Isle, in the next to Chicago. So that will be, or next to Detroit rather, not Chicago. And that, when you have those when we go to the Detroit specifically, we see some of these drivers that are better at the street circuits that will excel over the full-size road circuits where there's not a whole lot of room to operate in there. They handle very differently, does Detroit, to say a Hockenheim, a Watkins Glen. You approach it much differently, and we'll see some drivers do well there. But Seth, I want to get your input on it. You've covered quite a few races at Detroit, especially in Indy cars. I have covered them in GT3s. What are some of the differences that you've noticed so far through your experience with watching Indy cars run around at Detroit that we're going to have to look out for?
I would say for the most part, you're going to have to pick your battles. I mean, to me, Belle Isle, it kind of similar to me like, let's say like a Trois Rivieras. I mean, you've got those really tight corners, the little room for error, and a lot of places where whenever I would do broadcasts when they would head into a track like Belle Isle, I would basically, pick out the areas where I think the passes are going to be made. And the drivers would turn around and surprise me. They wouldn't pass in those areas. They'd pass in somewhere else where I would look and say, no, you can't fit them double wide. So, it's going to be interesting to see if these drivers do the same thing when we get there in a week's time, because you have to not only battle the racetrack, but battle the drivers around you. And it is a pick your moment spot. We had a lot more space to work with when we were at Road America last week, a lot more passing opportunities, but at the same time, we also saw a number of race cars that ended up on the tow hook. So that's got to be something these guys have to keep an eye on next week as well, especially those that coming into tonight were looking for good runs after some disappointments at Road America last week. And, in the case of drivers like Michael Gonzalez, Zach Novak, these are guys that struggled last week, and they're in the garage area here tonight. And you've got to be looking at Detroit next week to try and bounce back.
Absolutely. So, and if you're wondering what the rest of the schedule looks like for this season, again, next week we will be in Detroit. And then the week that follows, we will be starting our first of 2 Indianapolis races. We'll be running the Indianapolis GP circuit. That will be September 26th. And then after that, October 3rd, will be the Pepega 500. The premier event for this league, that will be the full 500-mile race, all 200 laps of that circuit being ran. And then we go over to Germany for a race at the Hockenheim Ring. The first race, I believe I've seen these cars run at the Hockenheim Ring, so that will be fun to see that. And I'm also a huge fan of the circuit, so absolutely astounded that we'll be astounded, yes, but absolutely beside myself that we'll be going to Hockenheim. And then after that will be Auto Club. That will be the first stop, or the third stop on the schedule for a oval race. Then we head to Long Beach, Watkins Glen, and then the season finale at Chicagoland. So big diverse group of tracks that we'll be going to. Obviously Detroit Street Circuit. Then we have the 2 variations of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the GP and oval circuit. Hockenheim, super famous racetrack for anybody who follows international motorsport and Formula One. You'll know that 2019 was a rain out, and we had one of the best rain races I've ever seen come out of it. Auto Club, obviously huge, super long, or not really super long, but 2-mile, plenty of lanes for these drivers to run in. Long Beach, another street circuit. Watkins Glen, super fast flowing road course, and Chicagoland will be a bit like this, except a D-shaped oval.
Keep watching this battle for 6, because it will not go away. Presley Sora, Justin Lisenby, these two keep swapping that spot back and forth, and it's the closest battle on the racetrack right now. You've got over 4 seconds separating race leader Caden Rush back to Alex Van Desant. We might have a battle for that second spot momentarily, as Blake Reynolds has been running anywhere from 1/10.5 to 2/10 faster than Van Desant these last few laps. So that could be something we'll be looking at momentarily. And by the way, during this green flag run, turn 2 continues to be up to its old tricks, though we have not seen the caution flag. Looks like Will Klein, as well as Mark Finlayson, they have had issues in the last 20 to 25 laps. They both sit on pit lane multiple laps down, and about, I believe, 5 laps ago, Jonathan Delaney had his second spin off of turn 2. He didn't hit anything, I don't believe, though, as he was able to drive away from the incident and continue on, but he is right now 1 lap down, the only car 1 lap down in the 16th position. So obviously he would be hoping for a caution to come out to get back in the lead lap, as we have now drawn into 50 laps remaining in this event, and there you see the gap from Alex Van Desant back to Blake Reynolds for P2.
And as Blake Reynolds closes in, I almost wonder if he was saving his tires for the end of the run. He is running a groove higher than Van Desant is. I wonder if he's doing that on purpose. I've noticed the last couple of laps that Van Desant has had some problems getting off of turn 2, as everyone in the field has had those issues so far, and it's even plaguing these front runners. But the reason I think that Reynolds is running up a groove higher is it's a lot straighter of an exit off of turn 2, and while it is a slower way around the track, you mitigate the risk of losing the car under a corner exit if you were to be on a lower line. So maybe sacrificing some cornering speed for the ability to use full power on the way out and not have to check up on the way. So we'll have to see if he can continue to run that. He is closing in. It's down to about half a second now. So whatever the strategy he's using is working at the moment.
Battle for sixth continues on again between Lisenby and Sora. Lisenby getting the advantage here off of turn 2. We'll jump back up to that brewing battle for second place. Just want to quickly apologize and amend a statement that I made earlier. I'm pretty certain that I listed AJ Musselman in the list of drivers that were in the top 10 in points coming to this race that were not in the field. That's not correct. Musselman right now has that 54 positioned in the 13th position. He's actually been mixing it up with Spencer Ray in a battle for 12th the last couple of laps. So Musselman is a driver that if he can keep himself here on the lead lap and keep himself around that 10th position, could still be in the top 10 in points when we head into next week's race at Detroit Belle Isle. But Caden Rush, could we possibly be looking at green flag pit stops before we get to the end of this race? He holds 3 seconds over Alex Van de Sant and Blake Reynolds. That's your podium right now here at the Homestead-Miami Speedway. As we're going to step aside for a commercial break, you aren't going to miss a bit of the action as we're going FRN side by side.
Welcome, race fans. This is Paul Page, the voice of IndyCars. And today we're excited to present another IndyCar event brought to you by the Dark Horse IndyCar Series. From the Unzers to Mears, to Foyt and Andretti, now it's Corley, Peterson, Davies, Gardner, and T. You can expect high speeds, incredible wheel-to-wheel action, and intense drama that you could only get in an IndyCar. So sit back and enjoy your favorite drivers from all over the world take the track. Dark Horse IndyCar drivers, start your engines.
Well, now we know why the tires are called Firestones, because they were on fire for Alex Van de Sant as he really smoked him getting onto pit lane, and this begins the round of green flag pit stops. Van de Sant pitting from the 3rd position after he had just lost 2nd place to Blake Reynolds. Now, Anthony, is the hand forced for drivers like Reynolds and our race leader, Caden Rush?
I would think so. At this stage in the race, you can make it to the end of the race based on if you pit now. I think somebody else just hit the pit lane. It was a driver further back. It might have been
89, Justin Petshower.
Yeah, Petshower on the pit lane. So for Rush, Reynolds, they could pit now and make it to the end of the race. Now, what the benefit for Van de Sant is that he'll have fresh tires now and be able to use them during the duration while these drivers have got some slower tires on. Now, the difference is, however, is that the lap times really haven't gone off that much as Caden Rush hits the pit lane. But the lap times really haven't gone down that much since the start of the green flag. It's only off by a couple tenths a second.
It's like also down pit road, the 15 of Cole Freilich behind Caden Rush that turns the race lead over to Blake Reynolds. And what these drivers are basically doing now is they're splitting this final stint in half. If we go green from that last restart to the checkered flag, they will be running about 40 laps on the first stint and 40 laps to the checkered flag, splitting it right evenly in half. Now for Blake Reynolds staying out the way he is, what he's hoping for is that he's going to have the fresh rubber longer later towards the end of the run. We know he's got some tremendous long run speed, so this is all strategizing for potentially the final 5 to 3 laps of the race, and it's taking place with 36 laps to go.
Absolutely. Something that Reynolds also might be under consideration is that because the lap times good. I don't know if you were looking at him or not, but that was a huge bobble coming off of turn 2, and now he's decided it's time to hit the pit lane as he enters onto the back straightaway. And it is the rule here that you must enter on the access road, goes around and onto the pit lane. So with that bobble coming out of turn 2, that's another thing that these drivers will have to keep in mind, is that the new tires, that might not necessarily make you much quicker, they will make you a lot more stable going out of turn 2 as the run goes on. That's where we see most of the drivers have their issues, as Adam Crane will inherit the lead momentarily. Victor Valley will be our interim second place, and AJ Musselman will be our third place runner. They have yet to pit.
When Reynolds entered pit road, Briar LaPrade and Justin Lisenby were leaving, and also following the 66 down was the 98 of Presley Soras. So we now have 3 drivers that are yet to make their first pit stop here on this green flag run, being, as you mentioned, Crane, Valley, and Musselman. And we'll see how long Crane is going to wait, because the thing of it is, right now, if a caution were to come out, he has everybody, with the exception of the top 5, trapped 1 lap down, back down to the 5th place running Alex Van de Sant. I don't necessarily know if he ends up coming to pit road, if a caution does come out, if all those drivers would be able to take the wave around or not. We've seen a number of drivers be able to get their laps back that were multiple laps down under the cautions we've had so far here tonight. I would assume they'd all get back on the lead lap. So I'm not necessarily certain what the strategy is here on the 29 machine, especially with the fact you were talking about like the difference in lap times for those guys up at the front, 2-3 tenths of a second. Well, if you look right now, for Adam Crane, his best lap was a 26.3. That last time by, he ran a 27 flat, so it's a much bigger deficit in speed for his fresh tires to old tires, and now he's going to dive onto pit road.
I think you might have heard what you were talking about him and how he's decided to hit the pit lane. Yeah, his lap times definitely did fall off quite a bit more than the other drivers did, and as a result, will now definitely want to get those pit. Now, someone who hasn't had his lap times falter off almost any at all is Victor Valley. You can look at his best lap, and then you also look at the lap times he's running. It's only about a 10th off as he retakes those. He's now coming back down coming down the first time on the pit lane, but that is something that might have benefit you if they had gone into a fuel run, being able to stay out that much longer. But now, with that being coming down pit road, it will undoubtedly hand the lead over to right now Musselman, but once he makes his stop, it'll go back to Caden Rush. But valuable information for later in the race. Your tires, not necessarily that much of an issue. You do lose some time, but definitely not enough to phone home about, as I do want to wonder what was wrong with Adam Crane, why he was running so slow. Well, it might have been a bobble coming out of turn 2, maybe.
Quite possibly. Adam Crane, looks like he'll be slotting out around the 7th position, maybe 6th position, depending on where AJ Musselman returns back to the track. But Caden Rush indeed is going to be the race leader once again. Now, he had about, 3.5 seconds back to Alex Van de Sant. Now it's only about 1.8 seconds back to the second place battle between Van de Sant and Blake Reynolds, which that might actually have Caden Rush's race lead in jeopardy, especially with the speed we've seen out of this 66, who is going to try and complete the pass for the runner-up spot here. Caden Rush has been out in front pretty much the entirety of this race after starting on the pole, but that 66 is going to start to get pretty large in his rearview mirror the longer this run goes on, and Reynolds has plenty of time to work with, 28 coming to 27 laps to go.
Makes the pass on the outside line, does Reynolds. Holding the lead as of the moment, but again, Van de Sant trying to stay within the wake. And here you go. There's what I was talking about. Reynolds running around the outside of the racetrack, Van de Sant running the inside of the racetrack. And again, that's because on the exit, Blake Reynolds is facing a bit straighter on the exit of the turn, is able to get the power going down the straightaways. I wonder if Van de Sant might be a little bit hesitant to try the outside line, given the fact that he wants to be in clean air as opposed to the dirty air coming off the back end of the 66. But it's definitely the lap times are not.
Got a
Ooh,
wreck
there's
out of turn 2. AJ Musselman and Justin Petshower, they have gotten together and the caution is out.
and that I believe it was just turn 2 biting again, or maybe not. Maybe it was a little bit more than that. No, it was exactly that.
Both the drivers were running in the 11th and 12th positions at the time. Take a look at what happens here as Musselman had just come to pit road, had those fresh tires, got a big run to the inside of the 89, and just wrong place, wrong time when Petshower's car snapped loose.
Just the little bit of a flick that he tried to correct it. He just couldn't do it in enough time. Now, give credit to Musselman. I think he saw what was happening, was just trying to hold it to the inside as best he could, but Petshower on the way down just tagged him, and that sent both of them sliding down the back straightaway. Multi-car incident results in a full course yellow, and give credit to the guy behind. I'm not sure who that was, but seeing the incident in front of him, he was able to duck down to the inside of the racetrack in order to avoid it. But
I believe that might have possibly been, if not Spencer Ray, maybe Victor Valley in the 26?
Scott Taylor, I think. Nope, that wasn't Scott Taylor. Not sure who that was. We'll figure it out at some point. But might have been no, I don't think it was Gavin Newton. It was a blue car. Either way, the way that they run now is that was a blessing in disguise for some drivers, as they were able to now top off with some fuel and get some fresh tires. Some drivers have elected to stay out the last time around, that being Sora, Valley, and that would be it. Those two drivers staying out. Maybe this is strategy. Maybe they're going to come down this time by, but two drivers out of the rest of them staying out this last time.
Well, it should be good to make it on fuel, because most everybody came down around the 40 lap to go mark. Presley Sora and Victor Valley actually pitted a couple laps after that, so they'd be even more to the good on fuel. Maybe, we saw Presley Sora mixing it up there with Justin Lisenby for 6th place. The majority of that last green flag run might be of the feeling that his car is fast enough to keep these other drivers at bay. I think the same could be said for Victor Valley. I mean, you were commenting on how his lap times, fresh tires or old, were pretty similar. I mean, as long as he stays away from that white line, which was his curse on the first lap, he might also have a vehicle that can keep everybody in his rearview mirror. So, I kind of like this call on the part of both of these drivers. Track position over the fuel, since pretty much we know everybody should be able to make it on what they had in the tank on their last green flag pit stop.
So the lap times have been running down extremely quickly ever since the third restart of the night, running about 26-second lap times around this 1.5 mile circuit. As a result of that, we are very quickly approaching 20 laps to go. Presley Sora is the leader of the race. Victor Valley will be in a second place position. Caden Rush has been the first driver to come down pit road under this full course, will be a third place lined up when we take the restart, and then it's Reynolds, Van de Sant, Lisenby, LaPrade, Freilich, Budafoco, and Ray will be our top 10. As the runs progress, we've seen drivers be better than others on the longer run, and how drivers have been able to handle the exit of turn 2. It's still a huge talking point, that exit of turn 2. Have to make sure that everybody gets around that okay on this restart. It's the first caution we've had since lap 7 I believe it was the last one that we had a yellow flag on. So, and we've had plenty of incidences between that, none of them worthy of bringing out a yellow flag. Lots of drivers spinning off of turn 2, but going on to the inside apron up against the inside wall. Lots of damage accumulating over those drivers, including Will Klein, Michael Gonzalez, Taylor Musselman this last time around, Petshire, Delaney, and others that have bitten the spin off of turn 2. But we'll get ready to go back under green flag conditions. Sora Valley again, your top 2. Still with just over 20 laps to go, but those will tick by extremely quick with these indies.
Yeah, and Pet Shower, Musselman, who were involved in that last incident, they had to take on faster pairs. We're going to be getting the green with a little bit more than 20 laps to go. Only a handful of drivers still have the faster pair available to them. I believe 7 in total. So things are definitely going to pick up here in the closing stages. And if we see some torn up race cars, it may be day done for a number of those involved, as 3 wide further back with Presley Sora leading us into turn 1. Keep an eye on these guys in the double wide formations, especially off of 2 with what we know it's brought to the table today.
4 wide!
My goodness!
And they're gonna
rush,
and they're gonna make it work somehow. No, back behind them, there's a spinner. I believe that's Freilich that's gone around. I don't think he went all the way around, but the yellow flag does come out. He has gone all the way around. Heavy damage to the 15 car on the way out of turn 4. I cannot believe that they were able to make 4 wide work, though.
And a car upside down there on the front straightaway was Jonathan Delaney. Adam Crane also involved in that one in the 29. A lot of damage to the left front of his machine as that left front tire trying to break away from the body of that Indy car. Let's go back and see what happened. That was off of turn 4, and I think you're right. I think it was the 15 of Cole Freilich getting hooked that started it all.
I think Freilich, reacting to what was happening in front of them, what happened, the cars in front had nothing to do with this. Cole Freilich was a couple of rows behind these drivers that went 4 wide, running the extreme outside of the racetrack. I think he might have, he had some help. He had contact.
Yeah, there were a couple of cars also involved that I didn't realize, including the 35 of Briar LaPrade, and trying to pinpoint that other black and red machine that had a lot of front end damage there. Is that the 13, I believe, of Daniel Buttafoco?
It was indeed Buttafoco that came in late with a hit on to Freilich. And he had some help as well from the black and gray car underneath him. I think they made contact on the corner exit and actually shot him up the racetrack and into Freilich. And that's where he got his damage, heavy damage on the 13, trying to get around to the pit lane he was. But that was way behind what you thought would cause this crash. It's actually LaPrade and Freilich getting together on the exit of turn 4.
You saw right there when Delaney went upside down, that was himself and Adam Crane who shot down to the inside wall. Heavy impact for both of those drivers.
There's a lot of stuff happening in the background of this 4 wide incident. And man, so many wrecked race cars come out of it, but that is, I think, desperation mode setting in for some of these drivers. I think it's about time that maybe some of them are trying to see if they can make their way to the front of the field, trying anything that they can to just get up there and vie for a top 10's position. But those kind of moves, I'm surprised that the 4 wide was able to work, but this a huge pile up on the front straightaway, a couple cars, or one car specifically going over on its roof. And we're just now under 20 laps to go.
And the garage area continues to pile up with torn up machines. 3 more drivers out after that one. Delaney, Freilich, and the 99 of Scott Taylor. So right now, by the count that we have, 13 drivers still in the running for this victory. All 13 still on the lead lap. But I said it was about 7 drivers that still had the faster pair available. Now we've only got 4. Those drivers would include your top 2, Presley Sora and Alexander Van Desant. 5th place running Caden Rush, who's been in maybe the safest place all day. That's out in front. And then Gavin Newton in the 7, who we haven't really mentioned a lot today, and maybe that's a good thing because he hasn't been involved in any incidents. Right now, he's got himself positioned in the 8th spot, getting ready for this next restart, which is going to be closing in on the 15 lap to go mark.
And lights on the safety car have gone off. We will be going to green flag racing this time around. The way they run now is Sora, Van de Sant, Valley, Reynolds, Lisenby, Rush, Newton, Ray, LaPrade, Crane, Budafoco, Petshire, and Musselman. Every other driver that was involved in that incident has gone out of the race, that being Delaney, Freilich, Taylor. Those drivers have retired as a result of the front straightaway pandemonium that occurred a few laps ago. Seth, we've come this far. We've got 13 drivers running on the racetrack still out of the 22 that took the green flag. The biggest thing hasn't been the amount of yellows that we've had, but the amount of drivers that have spun off of turn 2. This time it was 2 cars colliding on the exit of turn 4. And we saw 4 wide racing. Do we see more of that with only a handful of laps to go? And it will go by in no time. These drivers, desperation mode for some of them outside the top 5, maybe even outside the top 10, are setting in.
Yeah, and I'm really wondering about some of these guys as well that were involved in that 4-wide situation as we get ready to go green. Sora, Van de Sant, Lisenby, as well as Brian LaPrade. These are guys that are trying to battle for the championship. I mean, we got to remember that we've got 8 more races after this one is over. Big picture race, guys. Don't tear up those machines. Don't take yourself out of the running for this one. Get the max points you can.
3 wide between Van de Sant, Lisenby, and Ray, back by the 5th place position. Will make that Lisenby Rush and Van de Sant. As Van de Sant on the extreme high side gets the move done, continues to stay in the 4th place position behind them. 2 wide racing between Rush and Lisenby, but that settled itself out. Lisenby now on the charge from Ray, and Crane is making his way back up through the field, trying to get back up towards the top 5. To the inside of Lisenby he goes, trying to make the pass done, going on the back straightaway, not going to have enough run to do it this time around.
Lake Reynolds to the inside of Presley Sora. He'll go to the point off of turn 4. Sora looking for the run on the front straightaway. He crosses over going into turn 1. That's the battle for the top position. Behind them, Victor Valley, Alexander Van de Sant mixing up for 3rd. And I think we may have had our second moment of 4 wide back there at the very end of this pack. Last time by out of turn 4, but everybody was able to keep it together.
As the lead continues to change hands, Reynolds back into the lead of the race as Sora will fall into 2nd place yet again. These two trading the lead. To the inside again goes Sora to try and get the lead back from Reynolds. Will indeed do it going into turn 1. This is good news for Van de Sant and Victor Valley, who are slowly but surely catching up to these drivers. The question is, do they have enough time when they hit the stripe next time by? It'll be 12 laps to go, or make that 13 laps to go.
Problem for the 3rd and 4th place cars is they're basically having the same kind of battle that the top 2 are. Keep changing that 3rd position back and forth. It's actually allowing Caden Rush, the pole sitter, to reel them in a 3-way battle for the 3rd spot, and it is losing them time to the top 2 over a 2nd gap from 1st and 2nd back to the 3rd place running Alex Van de Sant as they snake down the back straightaway. Presley Sora in for maybe the most exciting 12 laps of his life, trying to keep Blake Reynolds in his rearview mirror, and I think these two are trying to figure out, if I cross him over here, am I going to be the first one back to the start-finish line? Because the way things are shaping up, Anthony, it could be mere inches in deciding today's race winner.
The way that they ran, the way that they've been exchanging the positions, absolutely, is Reynolds is still trying to stay within the slipstream of the leader, Sora. Sora, I believe this is the first time that we've seen him in the lead of the race tonight, and doing it in a pretty dominating fashion as well, not being able to, or not letting Blake Reynolds keep up with them as they've kind of settled into a run. 11 laps to go, or make that 10 laps to go now at the stripe. So can Presley Sora continue to hold this lead again? Reynolds running that high line, Sora running the inside line, and behind them it's a similar situation between Van de Sant and Victor Valley. One of the reasons they do that is because the guy behind does not want to be in the dirty air of the guy in front. That could cause your car to bog down, but as they run, as it looks like it's affecting Reynolds too much as he's trying to get some slipstream down the front straight, but losing position now, or losing time now to Presley Sora as Van de Sant continues to try and close in the gap for 2nd.
And here's the battle for 5th place. Ran the fastest lap last time by of any driver in the field. That's Briar LaPrade, who had Caden Rush cleared around the top. Caden Rush drew him back using the side draft to the left rear quarter panel. They continue to battle side by side for the final spot inside the top 5. Now Rush going to hang on to that position. They're both starting to reel in Victor Valley. Meanwhile, up at the front, half a second between Presley Sora and Blake Reynolds, and you have to wonder, did Blake Reynolds use up his stuff too quickly? There's also the difference, 11 laps in the tires, or actually no correction, I was going to say 11 laps in the tires of Sora and Blake Reynolds, but actually Blake Reynolds, when he came to pit road with Caden Rush and company, he went fuel only. So actually Sora and Reynolds are pretty equal on the Firestones they've got underneath them.
Which is incredible that they've been able to run these amount of lap times on the tires that they have. We documented earlier that it didn't seem to matter too much how old your tires were. You're only going to lose a couple tenths of a second over your overall lap time, and it's paying dividends for some of these drivers, such as Sora right now. Everyone kind of gotten single filed out, and I do think that this is Sora's race to lose now. All he has to do is be consistent. Reynolds hasn't been able to catch back up to the back end, as Sora's been able to go defensive to the inside line to keep the momentum from shifting too much. He's trying to take away the slipstream. I say that, though, and Reynolds has closed up quite a big deal this last time back. You wonder if he was just hanging back trying to time his run.
Yeah, this could be huge for Presley Sora if he is able to keep Blake Reynolds at bay for this race win. Came into this event 4th in the point standings. Of course, they'd only run the first race of the season at Road America, so the points were really close. He was minus 11 to points leader Alexander Van de Sant. He runs ahead of him. He runs ahead of Briar LaPrade. Nate Stewart not in the field.
Whoa.
If he can close this out, he might be heading into Belle Isle as the points leader. And you saw right there, that was a defensive move. I know that looked like he chopped off the 66, but what he did was he took the air off the nose of Blake Reynolds, got him really tight there off of turn 4. That's something he'll do if the 66 gets within striking distance again.
That might have done it. I don't think there is enough time to catch back up to Sora, given the fact that he lost so much time trying to bail out so he couldn't hit the outside wall. He was trying to avoid the outside wall, and ever since then, Reynolds has not been able to get going back on the inside line as well as he would like to on the way out of turn 4. He likes running the high side, but looks like he's about ready to slap the wall coming out of turn 4 lap after lap. 3 laps to go. I don't know if he can catch up with the amount of time left, though. It's so close. That might have been the move that wins Sora the race.
Talk about Sora, this being his race to lose. Well, for a majority of this event, it was Caden Rush's race to lose. Now he finds himself with 2 laps to go, back in the clutches of Victor Valley. That's a battle for the 4th position. Briar LaPrade trying to close in as well. It's going to be a good points day for Caden Rush, but you know he would have loved to have gone coast to coast here at the Homestead-Miami Speedway, as through 3 and 4, this next time by, Presley Sora will see the white flag. The gap is less than half a second back to Blake Reynolds. Can he reel him in time to have a shot in 3 and 4 next time around?
Going through 1 and 2, final time. Down to the inside goes Presley Sora. I think that he's got this pretty much locked up unless he has a bobble going through 3 and 4 down the back straightaway. About a half a second gap separates Presley Sora from Blake Reynolds, and that's all she wrote. Coming out of turn 4 for the final time, Sora will hold on and win at Homestead-Miami. That was an incredible drive at the end of the race, and that move that he blocked Reynolds with, that was the move that won him the race.
Certainly was. Reynolds was never able to get back to him. And how about the strategy call for Presley Sora when just about everybody else came to pit road under the last caution? He and Victor Valley were the only 2 that decided to stay out, take the track position over the tires and fuel, and Presley Sora never looked back. That clean air might have been the deciding factor. What a start to the season here in PepegaCar for Presley Sora. A 4th place last week at Road America, and a victory here tonight at the first Speedway race on the schedule.
It's a good points haul for this 98 crew. You know that they needed a good run to maintain their high standings in the points, and good for morale. A top 4 last time out, and now a win. A great way to start your season, and the way that he did it was able to take the air out of Reynolds, be able to hold off at the end of the race where it really mattered. And I don't think we saw Sora battling too high up into the top 5 throughout the majority of the race, and then the pit strategy late in the run was what won him the what got him to the position to be in the lead, and that drive at the end, being able to just hold it off Blake Reynolds. Any charge that he had, was able to be calm and collective. Running a different line than Blake Reynolds also helped out because it forced Reynolds to be outside of his comfort zone if he wanted to make a pass done. I gotta say, that was probably the best run at the end of a race that we've seen in a long, or at least I've seen in a long time, come out of some of these drivers.
And I have to wonder too, a lot of our focus when we had that long green flag run was on the battle for sixth. Presley Sora was involved in that with Justin Lisenby. I'm wondering if the fact that he had that battle going on, which at the time was for the sixth position between himself and Lisenby, if that gave him a little bit of intel of what his car was capable of doing, how he would be able to move the air around if he was in a position like he was in the closing stages.
It could have been. That's something that, back in the beginning of the race or even throughout the midway of the race, that might have been something that they were learning how to accomplish and use it into practice this time around. But so many things that went into that end of the race was, I want to imagine, was gearing up from the beginning, the onset. But knowing that that could have been one of the cases, I just, I'm speechless right now. That was a fantastic run at the end of the race.
And I'll tell you what, I'm really going to be looking forward to seeing what the point standings look like heading into Belle Isle as well. I think they were close coming in. They're going to be just as close, if not closer, leaving here tonight at Homestead. Presley Sora was fourth in points with the win. Blake Reynolds, great run his debut in second. Your points leader, Alex Van de Sant, not too far back there. He finishes in the podium. You've also got Victor Valle and Caden Rush getting top fives here tonight, but Briar LaPrade, who was the runner-up last week, second in the points coming into this race. He's in sixth. And Adam Crane just behind Spencer Ray. He was sixth in the point stands, only 14 points out. He'll finish in the eighth position. So you've got four of your top six in the point stands coming to this one, all up here inside of the top 10. Actually, throw in Spencer Ray as well. I actually just noticed he is seventh in the points coming to this one, 17 points back. So there's five of your top eight that finish up here inside of the top eight again tonight. I mean, this is going to be a very close points battle heading into that very tricky Belle Isle road course next week.
If the way that they finished tonight holds up the rest of the season, we could see an extremely close points battle all the way through this season. Only two races in, and we have pretty much the same cast of characters finishing in the same positions that we had last time out. So very possible that by the time we get to Chicagoland, it might be some of these drivers still fighting it out, and it could come down to a few points that separate all of them if they continue to run the way they do. But we have to focus on Chicago next, or not Chicago, I keep saying that, Detroit next in Belle Isle. And that again, you mentioned it, a tricky street circuit. These drivers are going to have to bring their A game there, and it will definitely separate the men from the boys, and we'll have to see who can top that one.
And how about some of these guys that finished down in the results? Looking at guys like Michael Gonzalez, Chandler Parsons, Zach Novak, back-to-back DNFs to start out the season. I mean, you got to think that next week when we get to Detroit, they're going to have a fire lit underneath them because, man, I mean, it's not that easy to dig yourself out of a hole when you're in that big of a deficit early on. You've not only got to rely on consistency, you've probably got to find victory lane to get yourself back into contention for that championship because it is only a 10 race schedule. Not a lot of time to be able to mount a comeback.
No, not at all. And especially given that because it's so short, if you have a falter any point in the season, it will come back to haunt you. You'll have to make up that ground. You don't have a full schedule to work with, so I just have to be consistent, race in and race out. And a good bit of tracks that we're going to this season can call some drivers out. Again, we mentioned Detroit, that can call some drivers out, but some tracks might be a little bit more forgiving than others, and some of these drivers might be looking to those to potentially, if they have a falter at some of these tracks coming up, that they might look to those tracks and have essentially a makeup race. But as they stand right now, the drivers that are coming out of this one with the best of everything is going to be Sora, Reynolds, Van de Sant, and even throw in Spencer Ray and Briar LaPrade into that mix, as they are coming out, like Seth mentioned, with a huge points haul still. And I would imagine that these points are going to be even closer going into a very tricky Detroit.
Only one driver is going to start out the season with back-to-back podium finishes. He took the checkered flag last week at Road America. He is tonight's third-place finisher. Let's talk with Alex Van de Sant. Hey, Alex, it's Anthony and Seth up here in the FRN booth. You got us?
I gotcha.
Man, I mean, we know you're good at the road courses. We know you're good at the speedways. It looked like everybody had their hands full here tonight, though. Third place performance for you. We'll see if this is going to keep you up there in the point standings, but looked like you guys not only had to struggle with each other out there in some great battles. We even saw a four-wide situation down the back straightaway, but looked like this track as well was playing havoc with you guys. Saw a lot of drivers have issues with turn two. What was the thing you think that kind of played into that, causing that car to, especially in the back end, to get upset off the second corner?
Yeah, so I never actually got to that point. I'm usually pretty conservative with the weight tracker, but I imagine people that have a bit less experience with this car, higher weight jacker makes it turn better, but it's really easy to hit that point where it just starts to snap on you off the corners, and it can change lap to lap and happen really suddenly. So it's just something people got to learn and try and get used to.
Throughout the whole entire race, we saw a number of drivers would get into runs and then spread out and then try to hold their line. Was the tire situation all that much? It didn't seem like the lap times were falling off too much to be an issue. Also, the four wide situation that we saw on the the penultimate restart of the race, that certainly had some hard stopping, and you were right in the midst of that. I want to give a point of view from that as well.
Yeah, that was something. The restarts were tough, and I knew you really had to go for it. When you're down low going into one, just right in that initial turn, and after that it's fine, but it gets really loose and a bit squirrely. So I saw that happening to the guys ahead of me. If you just get a little too close to that white line, so I decided to send it 3 wide, and it worked. But then I felt the looseness too, so I tightened it up with the weight tracker a bit, and then I just completely plowed in 3, so I wasn't able to stay ahead of Presley or take the lead or anything. But yeah, then I saw the 4 wide behind me, and it's like, oh, well, this isn't going to end well. Just got to keep my foot in it and try and get as much positions as I can.
Obviously, we're heading to a street course next week when you guys will be taking on Detroit Belle Isle. The thing we talked about here before we began the post-race interviews is a lot of drivers finishing up here again inside of the top 10 that had good performances last week at Road America, so the points are still going to be close. I mean, do you continue to feel the pressure no matter what the track is week after week to keep that consistency going? Because there's like about 7, 8 drivers that are still in the hunt for that championship, even though the season's still young.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to Detroit. I've always felt good there. I haven't had a good race overall. Like, I've never been able to really put one together without having some kind of issue. So, hopefully I can keep it clean, keep it out of the wall. And as long as I can do that, I think I can finish really well there. So yeah, for me, it's just about keeping up the consistency and building this momentum from the start of the season and trying to carry it through.
Alex, a great follow-up to your win last week in the season opener at Road America, third place here tonight, the Homestead-Miami Speedway. Congratulations on that, and now we'll give you the opportunity to thank some sponsors and do some shout-outs.
Yeah, as always, big thanks to my usual sponsors, lmcgear.com, as well as Happy Trails Chili Company. The chili mix is available on Amazon right now. Also, big thanks to the guys at Turn 4. Right today, it was just AJ Musselman on the team tonight, but he had a good run as well until this incident. And thanks to you guys for putting on a great broadcast as usual.
Alex Van de Sant, back-to-back podium finishes to start out the season here in PepegaCar. Congratulations once again, and best of luck next week when we head to Belle Isle.
Thanks, fellas.
Let's see if we can talk with our second place finisher here tonight, Blake Reynolds. Hey, Blake, Anthony and Seth up here in the FRN booth. You got us?
Yes, sir.
Well, man, we're used over here on FRN to seeing you wheeling a stock car around these 1.5 miles, but you looked right at home in the open wheel machine as well, almost picking up the victory in your debut here tonight in PepegaCar. I mean, how much fun were you having out there, and do you think you could have gotten up there to that 98, make something of it here for the win?
Yeah, it was a fun race. This is my first start. I missed last week because of FTF, actually. I was in that race. Got the win, next round of the playoffs there. But this league, I was looking forward to more so for the road courses. But this race ended up being more entertaining than I thought. Playing with the air was more multi-groove than I thought it was going to be. The cars were definitely slower on the straightaway. It had a nice amount of drag, so you could definitely make your move and kind of outthink somebody, you know. But Presley there at the end, he finally early in the race he wasn't doing the kind of I guess maneuvering, I guess air bending you could call it, that he was doing earlier. He finally got smart with it and was really doing it well. And then there at the end, I think it was 4 to go. I finally got real close to his rear wing and he shot me just right into turn 3. And I couldn't do anything after that. I lost all my momentum. But good win to Presley. He was up there in the top 5 most of the race.
Now, I noticed something that you were doing all race long that few other drivers were, and that was running around the middle to high line of the racetrack while everyone was electing to run the inside line. Was there a particular benefit that you had running the middle and high line of the circuit, that especially on some of the corner exit? Because I noticed that of all the drivers that were running the high line, most of them didn't have problems on the corner exit on turn 2, where we saw a lot of drivers spin and hit the inside retaining wall. Were you running in the middle of the track to avoid stuff like that, or is that where your car felt the most comfortable at?
Yeah, there's that weird seam at a turn 2, really. It flattens out real awkwardly. It's on that second seam right next, or like a lane off of the wall. So when you run the bottom, you kind of come up and you have to hit it. So I was like, if I'm gonna be, maneuvering myself in dirty air and I can't control my car very good, I might as well just run the wall and get a straight exit out of 2 to do it. And I know in the Cup cars, when they last updated this track, like, I know how to use the seams to kind of turn the car. And surprisingly, at 210 miles an hour in the Indy car, it's the same concept. It still works. So um, I did that and was biding my time. I wasn't trying to burn up a tire. I was just kind of keeping them in check. Even tire wear all night, right front, left, or yeah, right front and right rear. Um, yeah, just kind of bided my time, play with the lanes, use the air, use the seam, all the good stuff, and got that nice P2 finish.
Obviously, your night didn't exactly start out that smooth, getting involved in that lap 1 incident using the faster pair right out of the gate. So, I mean, how did that change your mentality and your approach for the rest of the race, or did it not affect it in any way?
Well, I didn't even know we had a faster pair. At first, I was like, "Oh, I'm out of the race," but yeah, I I pitted. I got my pair. Oh, what is Larson doing? Hello. Sorry, I'm watching the Cup race. This is okay. I won't spoil that for those that have not watched the Cup race. Oh my lord. I'm sorry. I completely forgot what you just told me. I just watched Kyle Larson do something really weird.
Basically, was asking about the mentality after taking on the faster pair and knowing you didn't have any other mulligans left.
Yeah, I just kind of treated it like an official race. That was my last life. I have to keep my car clean, and I guess that made me a little bit more patient.
Blake, start.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm done.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna now give you the opportunity to do some thank yous and
Okay.
some
Yeah.
shout outs after a great performance tonight.
Yeah, I hope you saw my beautiful McLaren paint scheme by Cosmin Yaneshu, Splash Go Graphics, McLaren Shadow, my eNASCAR team, Dead Zone Racing, my iRacing team, and of course Breyer and everyone LDR putting on Pepega. I was hoping to do their F1 league on F1 2020. Was not able to. It just kind of filled up when I wanted to run it, and yeah, I'm glad they're doing this. This is a fun IndyCar league. Not a lot of people do IndyCar leagues, so I'm actually in 2 at the moment. This one and the Nitro Circus NASA league. It's a lot of fun, and yeah, thank y'all for broadcasting too. You guys do a good job in FTF, and now you're covering this stuff and sponsoring Breyer. Good stuff.
That's Blake Reynolds. Great debut for him here tonight. The Homestead-Miami Speedway brings it home P2. Once again, congratulations. And yeah, looking forward to seeing if you do run some of these road courses, how you're going to be able to do. But great run tonight. Congratulations, Blake.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's go down to Victory Lane. 4th place last week at Road America. This week, P1 at the Homestead-Miami Speedway. Let's talk with Presley Sora. Presley, Anthony, and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yep, I got you.
Oh man, if we go back to look at the move of the race, it would have to be pit strategy. Just about everybody comes down pit road on that next to last caution. You elect to stay out and keep that track position. Never looked back. You had a challenge there momentarily from Blake Reynolds, but was clean air to the nose what you needed because that car looked fast when you were even back in traffic, battling it out with the 31 on that long green flag run.
Oh yeah, I was fast the whole time. It was just really hard to pass some of those guys, and then once you pass them, they do a crossover and get you back. So I was probably about fifth, sixth, or seventh most of the race until that strategy call. But I knew I was either going to win off that strategy or fall really far back, and I was pretty confident I could stay up there. And on that last restart, I knew if I made it to turn 3 while still in the lead, and then the clean air came in, I would probably hold on to it. And Blake gave me a good run for my money there. He was fast, and we came close at one point, and we were pulling crossovers on each other, and I'm glad I ended up getting him.
You definitely had a fantastic run at the end of this race, and getting that clean air certainly did seem to help out a lot. What was your strategy throughout the entire run of tonight? It seemed like a lot of drivers are having problems coming off of turn 2. Did you experience any of those problems with the car feeling a little weightless coming out of there and snapping around, or was it kind of planted? And what was your overall feel for tonight's race?
Yeah, it definitely wasn't planted. There's a couple times I came out of there and it stepped out on me, and I barely saved it. It probably happened 3 or 4 times, and I held on to it each time, thankfully. But yeah, turn 2 was rough on exit, but turn 1 was fine, no matter if you were in dirty air or not. But turn 3 and 4 was brutal, especially the middle lane. It was super tight, and it didn't get loose at all in 4. That's for sure.
Obviously, we're expecting a very close points battle heading into Belle Isle next week. Obviously, gonna be the second road course stop, but not a whole lot of room for error there. You had that runoff, a couple of runoff areas when we were at Road America. So, what's the mindset going into that one now, knowing that with this victory, you're right up there in the forefront in the battle for this championship in what's a relatively short schedule?
Yeah, the mindset for Belle Isle is survive, because I don't expect very many cars to finish that one. And like you said, there's pretty much no runoff. If you go off into one of the short little runoffs, you're going to have to back up and you're going to lose a ton of spots. So pretty much if you make any mistake at Belle Isle, you're going to end up wrecked and out of the race. So as long as I can survive that one, I think I can probably get top 2 or 3.
Well, a really great start to your season, Presley. 4th place last week. The victory here tonight. Hopefully, we'll continue to see you carry this momentum into Belle Isle. But now we're going to turn the microphone over to you and let you do some victory lane thank you sponsors and shout outs.
All right, yeah, and I also have to mention I'm racing on a wheel that I haven't used in a year and a half, because my wheel that I normally use broke on the last restart last week at Road America, and that's one of the reasons why I fell back so far in that, and it wouldn't upshift for some reason. So I'm using a basically brand new wheel tonight that I haven't used in a long time, so I'm kind of surprised I was able to do good. But yeah, I want to thank Moonsport, Maconi Setup Shop, Club Jerky especially. All of those guys are on my car, and then E-Speed Racing. Go check them out. They're a really good league. They run Xfinity Series, ARCA Series, and then some other fun races in between. So yeah, go check all those guys out. ClubJerky.com to get some jerky, and MaconiSetupShop.com to get setups, merchandise, all that good stuff.
Presley Sora got to burn it down here tonight at the Homestead-Miami Speedway. He's your winner in the second race of the season for PepegaCar. Congratulations, Presley. Going to be a lot of fun to see where this positions you in the point standings heading into Belle Isle next week, and good luck in that road course race.
Yep, thank you.
Only 2 races in, and man, we have been treated to some very exciting races. Last week, Alex Van de Sant able to hold off the rest of the competition to pick up that victory. Here tonight, it came down to pit strategy with Presley Sora going to victory lane, and I'm hearing some hesitation in some of these drivers' voices going into that street course of Belle Isle next week. I mean, what can we expect to see when we get to Detroit?
It's a tight circuit. It's not easy to make passes on. There's a few passing zones on the track, but for the most part, it's extremely technical, a street circuit. And if you're not used to how a street circuit drives, you're not used to the phantom bumps that you'll find around the street layout, then it will definitely catch some of these drivers out. And given the fact that we've seen a lot of drivers make starts in these races that or in these 2 races we've had so far, that they've been able to put together some good runs. Well, now we're going to go to a completely different circuit again. Elkhart Lake, definitely a big road course, lots of space to maneuver around here tonight. Same deal, a 3-lane wide oval, and then we're going to go to one of the tightest street courses on the schedule, I should say. And yeah, if you're a little upset or a little nervous about how your car will handle there, then absolutely, it's going to be a bit treacherous for some of these drivers. But others, they might come out of it pretty well, and we'll have to see how those drivers will do as well.
Actually need to just correct myself on something here. Actually, next week, PepegaCar is taking an off week. The following week, they will be running Belle Isle, but FRN will not be carrying that race. Actually, the next time we will be bringing you PepegaCar will be on the 26th of September. That's when these drivers will be heading to the Indianapolis Grand Prix. So we'll get a little bit of an idea of what happened at Belle Isle, but we can only speculate what it's going to be. But I mean, nonetheless, as we know, with what we've seen here in the first 2 races, it's going to be a heck of a race, and really be interesting to see what the storylines are when we come back to you guys in about 3 weeks' time at the road course configuration of Indianapolis. But Anthony, has been a great one here tonight at Homestead. Maybe a little bit more unexpected than we thought. Didn't expect the track was going to be one of the deciding factors in this one, with drivers having the difficulty out of turn 2. But at the end of the night, great strategy called by Presley Sora. Takes the checkered flag, his first of the season, and will make it a very close points battle heading into their next race at Belle Isle. Appreciate you joining the booth.
Absolutely. This has been a fun league so far. We're only 2 races in, but it's shaping up to be a huge points battle, as you said. And I can't wait to see what we get to watch when we get to Indianapolis.
Thanks to everybody that tuned in tonight. Hope you guys enjoyed our coverage of PepegaCar here at the Homestead-Miami Speedway. Lots of racing to come up this week. We've got an action-packed week with racing just about every single night, so be sure that you tune in to all of our events coming up here during the course of this week. For Anthony McCurry, I'm Seth Cole. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday night as you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.